It's time for another edition of the Improbability Engine. I'm Will Aubrey. My buddy Joe Darnell is here. And as always, we start with our moment of what?
Thanks, Will. I'm going to do mine like the old-time radio announcers. Dateline, Brooklyn, New York. A man was trying to cross a street in Brooklyn, New York, and he had some trouble because his leg was swallowed by a sinkhole. Now, when I saw the pictures, it looks like he's just sitting in a crosswalk, which wouldn't surprise you for coming out of New York City, but he's obviously struggling. His leg, he sunk to his hip in a sinkhole in a crosswalk in New York City. Of course, fire department people were called out there. They had to pull him and extricate him from this hole. Come to find out, there was a water leak that had undermined the asphalt of the road, which is far better than if he had fallen into the subway, which would have been very scary. And you know, with alligators and New York City subway rats, that could have been very, very bad. But as it was, he was fine and everything was okay. But you know, watch out, there are sinkholes everywhere. I guess that's my moment of what this week.
Okay, I went cycling with my wife at Horseshoe Lake.
Okay.
Over in Illinois. And inside the park, there was an old abandoned house.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, I had to go inside and look around.
Are you sure it was abandoned? Are you admitting to breaking and entering? Because I am not okay with that, Will.
Well, I'm sure it was abandoned. There were windows broken and debris through the house and that kind of thing. So anyway, I go inside. And I find an old tube-style TV set.
For the kids out there, he just means Grandpa's TV. And for the old people out there, he just means a regular TV, not one of these flat-screen things.
A 286 computer.
Okay.
With one of the green screen monitors.
Nice.
Little tiny monitor. A dot matrix printer.
Okay.
A bunch of 5 1/4-inch floppy disks.
Back when floppies actually were floppy.
Yes. And a bunch of Windows version 1 manuals. And, you know, my wife and I are talking, and those things are old to us, but it occurred to me, to a teenager today, tube TV, dot matrix printer, 5 1/4-inch floppies, they may not even recognize them at all.
Well, it just goes to show you, I'm a whole lot younger than you, Will. I mean, decades and decades younger. Yeah, I mean, really noticeably younger than you, Will. And when I was in middle school, we had MacBooks, the first generation Mac, laptop computers, which were awesome. They were, the olive green and black screens back whenever, the Game Boy Color kind of screens. And fast forward like 2 years later, we actually bought a original Macintosh desktop with the green tiny screen. That was our home computer, and I remember playing Battle Tank on that and having a great time. There was very, very, very little that it could do without discs, and it was disappointing to show it to friends, let me tell you.
I do want to mention one other thing about the trip, and this could have been the moment of what, because it was a revelation to me. We went to Wycliffe Mounds, since we passed through Wycliffe.
Yeah.
And so I had no idea what the mounds really were. I mean, I knew it was connected to an ancient Native American civilization, but that was all that I really knew.
Right.
It turns out only one of the mounds was a burial mound.
Right.
And that what the Native Americans did with the mounds is they built their houses on top of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the height of the mound was related to the status of whoever lived there.
Yeah.
The elite lived on top of these mounds, and then the rest of the village was on flat land surrounding the mounds. Anyway, that was a revelation to me, because I hadn't known about it. I just I thought it was particularly interesting.
It's a very, not to delve off into the esoterica of being a history buff, but the Mississippian cultures, and if you like that one, go to the Angel Mounds in southern Indiana, another Mississippian culture, and it is fantastic to go to. They really do a great job presenting it, and between Wycliffe Mounds and Angel Mounds, really a very interesting history outing that you can go on.
Don't ignore Almond Joy.
Much like Almond Joy,
sometimes you feel like a nut.
You're nuts, Will. All right, moving right along to the world of sports.
Let's talk about last week's Callaway-Murray football game. And I thought it was a toss-up going in, and for the first quarter and a half, it played out like a toss-up. Murray took control after that, and they won going away basically 42-19 after leading 14-12 at one point, and Callaway just wasn't able to get much done.
Well, last season, Callaway was able to win against Murray using their defense. This season, the defense was just unable to stop the Murray High attack. Lots of really good athletes for Murray High, big plays.
They've got a couple of running backs. Chase Maris gets most of the publicity, but I actually think Mark Thompson might be the better runner.
Right.
He'll run over you.
Yeah.
And he's a tough player. And then Hunter Utley, he's a serviceable quarterback for them. Callaway was completely one-dimensional,
right,
running it almost on every single play.
Which is fine if you're big enough, strong enough, and deep enough to do that. But against Murray, Callaway was unable to muster the numbers and forced to try to continue that going for the rest of the
Now, this week,
yeah,
moving forward, Callaway plays at Metcalfe County, and that game is scheduled for 5:30 on Saturday. Now, that is 5:30 Central Time, which that surprised me. But I called Metcalfe County High School, and oddly enough, even though they are east of Louisville, they are in the Central Time Zone.
Yeah, and don't try to figure that out. Dover in Edmonton, Kentucky, which is, kind of in between Columbia, Kentucky, and Glasgow. And it looks like it's going to be a tough game. I look at what Callaway's having to face. Metcalfe they've had some success this season so far. They're 1-1 with a loss to Taylor County 28-0 in the Forch Bank Bowl, but they beat Hart County, and quite frankly, this is a team that could give them a lot of trouble, give the Lakers a lot of trouble. They've got two guys who are running the ball very, very well in Chance Jones and Bryson Mays. Both are averaging over 80 yards a game.
And Mays has 175 yards on 24 carries. That's about 8 yards a carry.
That's a lot. Yeah,
that's a lot. Now, their quarterback really hasn't accomplished a whole lot. He's completing less than half of his passes.
But he's the other runner. So, he's going to be one of those guys that I think is one of those dual-threat quarterbacks.
But he's also thrown 3 interceptions, and he has no touchdown.
And if the Callaway wants to have success, you force teams like that to do what they don't want to do. In this case, it looks like Metcalfe does not like to pass the ball, or if they do, they're not as successful. If you can slow the run down enough where they have to throw the ball, then I think Callaway's got a good shot. If not, it's going to be a long night for the Lakers. They're just going to have to figure out how to make that work, I think, and that's going to be tough. It really is. It's going to be a difficult situation for the Lakers in that game.
Murray High plays at Madisonville North Hopkins. That game is on the road, and Murray, they opened with a 40-24 loss to Graves County, beat Callaway 42-19. I got to tell you, Madisonville North Hopkins is going to be very challenging for them. Okay. And that's despite the fact that they lost their opener to Owensboro 41-19, but they beat Marshall 42-29. And you want to talk about running backs?
Holy cow!
They've got one guy with 303 yards through 2 games on 34 carries. That's nearly 10 yards a carry.
Yeah.
They've got another guy with 262 yards on 38 carries, and another guy 146 yards on 18 carries. And oh, by the way, he's the backup quarterback.
Yeah. So you're looking at if you're a Murray Tiger fan, you're going to look at this game and you're going to see something that might make you feel a little uneasy. Because if you beat Marshall County, you have to do it by stopping Marshall County's running game. Last season the Lakers saw it. That Marshall County running game is good. They're well coached. They're talented. They've got the personnel to make things hurt. This team, this North Hopkins team, out-marshalled the Marshalls. If you're the Tigers, this is the exact opposite of what you want to see. You don't want a team that can stop the run and then run against you. That's what it looks like this North Hopkins team does. And frankly, I'll be interested to see what this Murray High offense can do against this North Hopkins Maroon defense. It's going to be interesting.
Now, North Hopkins throwing the ball about 15 times a game. And they haven't really, although their completion percentage for their number one quarterback is over 50%, they don't really seem to execute big plays out of the passing attack. They don't have any touchdowns. They're averaging just a little over 10 yards of completion. So they're not likely to hurt Murray deep.
Right. Now, on the defensive side, so they played against Marshall County last week. Marshall County, of course, led by some really good running backs. Mason Green had 136 yards rushing against Madisonville North Hopkins. That is very respectable on 19 carries. That's pretty good. It's not, that's solid. That's what you expect out of him. No other Marshall had double digits yardage in running. That's a big deal because you're putting all that weight on one guy. And don't get me wrong, Mason Green's a heck of a running back. He really is. It's going to be tough.
Murray could get blown out and still have a good team. That's how good Madisonville is.
Yeah, agreed. And in fact, if I was to pick the district now, Madisonville is the second team in the district behind Hopkinsville in this 4A. I think that Madisonville is going to be one of those teams that you don't want to face come playoff time, assuming everybody stays healthy. It's going to be a tough game for Murray High. I think they need to get some guys involved that really showed out last week against Callaway. You've got to have multiple people doing things. You can't just rely on a single guy to carry you through against this team.
Murray State opens their season tomorrow evening against Kentucky Wesleyan.
Yep.
The Racers will be going with Schuler Bentley at quarterback. DJ Pinnock is the number one running back. Kentucky Wesleyan is not a good football team. They were 3-8 last year. They're a Division II team. And so it's a game that Murray State should win handily. But,
I don't know.
There are reasons to be concerned about the Racers at this point.
Yeah, and quite frankly, you look at what they've got. This was a team that you knew was going to have to overcome the loss of Katie Humphreys at quarterback. They brought in Schuler Bentley, who's Old Dominion transfer, D1 guy, former Gatorade High School Player of the Year in South Carolina, and I expected that he would win the quarterback battle hands down. That's what you expect when you take a D1 transfer. Is this guy's going to come in and he's going to take this starting spot?
Yeah, but let's be clear. Old Dominion's barely an FBS team.
Agreed, but still.
You look at his numbers at Old Dominion,
right.
He completed right at 50% of his passes, threw half as many interceptions as he did touchdowns.
And those are all serviceable numbers.
Right.
They're not all world numbers.
Right, which was my point.
Yeah, and I think that some of that is a step up in competition, some of that is the timing of when he played, and you hope that stepping down a level and finding 1AA is a point where, okay, now he's going to find his footing. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's 6'6", Maybe that was the difference. He didn't come and just rip the quarterback job out of somebody else's hands.
No, Coach Stewart basically said that he got the job because he committed the fewest turnovers.
Right, and he got the job from a guy who sat out last year transferring from a lower level school. And so that's going to be a big question that the Racers have is at the quarterback position. But even more so, the loss of Mario McGraw. Mario McGraw decided to be a knucklehead and do some knucklehead things, and he's no longer on the team. I hope for his sake, football aside, that he can get himself straightened out and not go down this path, because he's a fantastic football player. He could have a future playing football. He could have a future with football that involves him getting a college degree. At this point, it does not seem to be in the cards because of choices he's made. And it brings in DJ Pinnock, the Highland Park, Illinois freshman, who's was pretty highly recruited in FCS circles, was a big time pickup, but he's a freshman.
Right.
And now instead of saying, okay, well, we've got a freshman as a backup to a couple of D1 transfers or a D1 transfer or two, like was the case last year at the beginning of the season for Mario McGraw, you now have to say, all right, kid, this is your show. And that's a lot harder thing to do for a freshman making that transition from high school to college football.
If you look at Kentucky Wesleyan, they do have a wide receiver who transferred in from Austin Peay who caught 71 balls last year.
Right.
The Racers will have to keep an eye on him.
Yeah. I think the defense is, if you're going to pick a side of the ball that the Racers are more adept at, I have to look at the defense. The defense is returning a lot of guys. They've got talent. They've got skills. They've got some all-conference guys in the secondary. I think this game should be, assuming that the offense can move the ball and score points in the deluge that's supposed to be coming, I think this will be a game that the Racers should walk away and win pretty handily. But you're right. There are a lot of questions out there that are going to have to be answered for this Racer football team.
Indeed. And we are really talking deluge, because tomorrow
6 inches of rain.
Yeah, they're predicting 6 inches of rain for the Murray area. And I actually saw one prediction that said it could be as much as 8 inches of rain. Now, that may not sound like an apocalyptic amount of rain to you, but if you multiply it by 10 to get the equivalent in snow, it would be the equivalent of 60 to 80 inches in snow. It's a heck of a lot of rain.
It's a lot of rain. Now, the good news is, unlike
the tickets have already been sold.
No, that's part of the good news. The good news is the field turf's in great shape. Drainage shouldn't be a problem. That's not an issue. What you're going to have, though, is it's going to be very difficult to have the ball in the air. You've got to hold on to the ball. You've got to not turn it over. In wet situations like that, fumbles happen all over the place. Everybody fumbles. It's just going to be that way. Everybody's going to fumble. And turnovers are the great equalizer.
Well, and the other thing that has to be a concern is if there are thunderstorms,
right,
you're going to have game delays.
Absolutely.
Because if they see lightning anywhere, they're going to stop the game.
Yeah. Which, quite frankly, if there's not lightning, I'd be surprised. And I'm just going to be honest about that. I'd be surprised if there wasn't lightning. So this is... The first game sure seems like a microcosm so far for football.
But if Murray State is a good FCS football team,
right,
then they should win this game 63-6, something like that.
Yeah, agreed.
If the score is close, that's bad news.
It is, and it all depends on the weather. I mean, if it's a situation where they only win 28-0 or something like that, and it's because they basically force turnovers and run and kick.
Yeah, where you really have to worry is if it's 21-17.
Exactly. Now that turns into, oh crap, because now all of a sudden, not only are we not able to stop, or we're not able to not turn the ball over, or we're not able to do something that we should be able to do against a team this level, we're not able to keep the ball either, that's the ultimate bad news situation. So I hope that Murray State's able to go out there and just run up the score and build some depth with some younger guys on the offensive side and get some reps. but I just don't know. I don't know what to expect. I really don't. Also, from Murray State University, the release of the basketball schedule, Will, it is like Christmas. It is awesome. I'm excited. And there are some familiar names on it. There are some interesting names on it. The highlight is that Bruce Pearl's Auburn Tigers are going to be coming to Murray State to start a series this season. What are your thoughts on this, Will?
I think that's awesome.
I agree. I think it's a fantastic situation to be in, especially if you're able to bring in these quote-unquote Power 5 conference teams. Now, I'm not going to sit here and argue and say that Auburn is a powerhouse in one of the big programs. They're not. They're not. But these teams generally don't play road games if they don't have to.
That's true, and it's exactly the kind of team that you want to play, because
Absolutely.
It doesn't do you any good if you're a mid-major to go get your brains beat in by Duke or Kentucky or teams like that. The way the RPI works, when the NCAA pays any attention to it,
which is arbitrary.
If you play somebody like Auburn, you not only get credit for Auburn's wins, you get credit for the wins of teams that Auburn plays, like Kentucky.
Which is a bonus. So, you try to find those teams. Now, there's going to be some people out there say, well, what's the difference in going playing at Auburn versus playing Auburn and Murray? Why don't you just try to line up? Yeah, it's great that you got a game at home versus Auburn, but, play some more of those games on the road. Do that. It's not a big deal.
Who says that?
People who don't understand basketball, Will. No, this is the whole situation. Playing games at home increases your winning percentage.
Absolutely.
Especially in close games. And this is a team at Murray State that lost a ton of really close games last season. Most of them were on the road. Most of the losses were on the road in these close games. I'm thinking now of South Dakota State as a great example. That's a team that, in all honesty, if you match up Murray State and South Dakota State last year, it really does come down to where'd you play it. They played in South Dakota State. Well, you lose the game. They played Illinois State and Murray. Illinois State, much better team than South Dakota State. Much better team, at least on paper at the end of the season, than Murray State was. Murray State beat them in a close game in Murray. Home games are valuable. There's a reason why these Power 6 conference teams don't like leaving, and it ain't revenue, no matter what they tell you. So it's a great big pickup. I'm really happy for it. Some other games on the schedule. You got your regional rivals. You've got Middle Tennessee coming to Murray, as well as Southern Illinois.
And Middle Tennessee won 31 games.
They did. They were fantastic last year. Another close game that Murray State played was against Middle Tennessee in Murfreesboro. Now, it wasn't nearly as close as the South Dakota State game or the Illinois State game, but this is a game that they were within 5 points going into the last part of the second half. It got away from them late, as games sometimes do, but this is a Middle Tennessee team that lost some guys, but they're very talented. They've got a lot of national buzz. Look for that to be a very good early test. Actually, that's the first D1 game that Murray State plays. It's against Middle Tennessee State on November 13th, a Monday night. So everybody get ready for that. Circle that on your calendar. A road game to Wright State. A good team to take on the road. Wright State plays, and they bring out a pretty good crowd. They're decent Horizon League team. They're one you got to beat, and it's a good one to have. Then you go and play at Illinois State in December, a return game. They're going to be smarting for that. But this is an Illinois State team that lost everybody on their roster. It seemed like they lost a ton of players to graduation and transfer, and they lost a lot of guys. They follow that up with a game at St. Louis. Now, people were upset. Well, you're going to take a bye game from St. Louis? Frankly, yeah, that's a pretty good bye game if you're going to get one. St. Louis is going to pay you. They're going to give you a check, and you got a chance to go and beat an Atlantic 10 team in their home city. Oh, and by the way, you remember how the Missouri Valley Conference was flirting with bringing Murray State in? St. Louis is in the home turf of the Missouri Valley Conference against a team that many Missouri Valley Conference fans would like to see leave the A-10 and come to the Missouri Valley. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But this is a chance for Murray State fans to road trip up to St. Louis on a Tuesday night in December, go up there, show up in full force, get the win. That's a smash and grab job.
And show the Missouri Valley how well our fans travel.
Absolutely.
Now, the women's schedule was also released.
Yep.
And it features games at Louisville and Alabama. But to me, the biggest news from the women's program is that Jeremy Rose is going to be doing the play-by-play on the radio. And Jeremy's done Marshall County's Lady Marshall games for years. He's a great guy. He's a great broadcaster. He will do a fantastic job. And I just think that it's great that they've stepped up and hired somebody that knows what they're doing instead of just having a student do it.
Absolutely. And even more than that, you know, you're able to go with somebody who is good at it.
Yeah.
Not just somebody who can do it, but who's good at it. That's a big deal. And quite frankly, if you're looking at this women's schedule, it's a great schedule. I'm really happy with it. They start on the road at Evansville. After exhibition time is over, they welcome Butler into Murray State. What conference is Butler in?
You don't know?
I'm asking because I think I know, but I'm not going to say until I know for sure. What conference is Butler in?
They're in the Big East.
You've got a Big East team coming to play in little old Murray. Well, you know what? I'm going to be at that game. That's a good one. They got Northern Kentucky coming in, another team that's regional rivals, although, quite frankly, they're not in the Big East. They got Lipscomb, or they go to Lipscomb, and then they go to play Louisville, which will be a major test. Louisville's program is one of the better ones in the nation, year in and year out. A lot of talent there, a chance to go and really make a splash and show people what Turner basketball looks like at Murray State. Games against East Tennessee State and Mississippi Valley State. Then they go on the road to Alabama, going down to Tuscaloosa in December. Another gut check kind of a game. That's a gut check game. Right before OVC, play starts, if you can go down there and you're not going to be surprised by the speed of play at Illinois State after you get done playing Alabama. I mean, that's just understood.
Anything else?
Well, the Cardinals traded Mike Leake to Seattle for no idea what they traded him for. Baseball's winding up. Football's starting up. The NFL will start soon. I'm in one fantasy sports league. First off, it's very difficult because, frankly, I don't watch enough professional sports to be involved in it. But I'm in one fantasy football league with my boss and my coworkers. I have already gotten and compiled my draft list. I'm ready for that. If anybody wants tips, let me know. I'll tell you where to go. I'm pretty excited about it, Will. I mean, this is
cool.
The best part about it. College football starting. College basketball is right around the corner, and we can make do with the NFL and NBA later on. It'll be okay.
The University of Louisville opens this weekend against Purdue. And
Western Kentucky connection in that game.
Yes, there is. There's also another University of Louisville connection in that game.
Really? All right. Give it to us.
Well, now, it's possible that I've lost my mind.
It's very possible. The probability is actually pretty high as well.
But I think Jeff Brom's the coach at Purdue, and of course he was quarterback at the University of Louisville back in the 90s, and that's a double connection, Western Kentucky and University of Louisville connection. And then University of Kentucky plays Southern Mississippi to start their season this weekend.
And that's a good start for them. The other connection in the Western Kentucky side is Elijah Sindelar might be starting in place of Purdue's injured quarterback. Elijah Sindelar, the quarterback from Caldwell County, who played Murray High, I want to say in the semifinals of the state tournament, and one of the most epic games in Western Kentucky football history. He went on to be the quarterback at Purdue, and I think he might actually get the start against Louisville. That's a good test. I expect Louisville's going to win that game.
They better.
Well, but look for Purdue to put up a good fight, and I look for Elijah to kind of do some things like he did in high school. From the Kentucky side, one would hope that Kentucky can beat Southern Miss. However, there are absolutely no guarantees in this world. I call that a 50-50 toss-up. Flip a coin, walk away, and hope to God, because that's all you got going for you.
Anything else?
Not really. I think that's it.
That brings to a close this edition of the Improbability Engine.